Hello, my name is Birgit Albrechter. I am a research fellow at CADE, which is a research center for the Decentralised Digital Economy, and I'm based at the University of Surrey in the UK. And very pleased, it's an honor for me to present a piece of research that I've been working on with Professor Parry, who is also based at the University of Surrey and also co-director at CADE. And our study aims to explore paradoxes that emerge with distributed ledger technologies. Very briefly introducing CADE. CADE is an EPSRC UK funded research centre for the decentralised digital economy. It is a collaboration between the University of Surrey, the University of Edinburgh and the Digital Catapult. And you will see on this slide there are also many industry partners that we work with within this centre. And very broadly, the centre aims to explore how distributed ledger technologies, blockchain technologies, but also, for instance, artificial intelligence can transform our digital economy through decentralized platforms. So that's very broadly the aim of the centre, and it's a very interdisciplinary research group working on different aspects within the decentralized digital economy. And what we're talking about, what are blockchain technologies and what are DLTs? Blockchain technology is a distributed ledger technology, it's a DLT, as we say, and it is secured by cryptography. And very simply put, a blockchain contains of different blocks, and each block contains some form of data. So there are transactions that are written together as a block. Also, each block contains a cryptographically generated unique code, which we refer to as a hash, and the hash of the previous block. That's why we come up with the name blockchain. Now, this mechanism makes it very difficult to change data that is stored on a blockchain, because once data is tampered with, this block will unchain from the blockchain, and you would need to work pretty hard to change the hashes of that block and all subsequent blocks, and do that faster than miners are adding new blocks to the established blockchain. So this makes it an almost immutable data record. And it is also underpinned by peer-to-peer networks and the consensus mechanism, which also contributes to this immutability. So summarizing, we can say that a fundamental characteristic of a DLT is that it is a shared list that is difficult to change. Or we could also say it's a database that does not rely on an intermediary or a central authority. And there was a lot of excitement about blockchain technologies. As some of you may have seen in the media, it was hyped quite a bit for some time, having the potential to contribute to the fulfillment of the UN Sustainability Development Goals. It was even claimed that it could help to address global challenges such as the refugee crisis, world hunger and poverty. It can create more transparent and therefore more sustainable supply chains, and there were applications with Everledger in different industries, for example, trying to make very troubled industries such as gemstone mining, diamond mining, but there were also many other application areas where Everledger tried to make this supply chain more transparent and therefore more sustainable. But with all this excitement, we also have to acknowledge that there are also new emerging challenges. So currently, the creation of blocks requires enormous computing power, and in particular, the Bitcoin blockchain is known for its growing energy consumption and also growing carbon emissions that are associated with that. Also, we see that there is a shift from trust in individuals and institutions to trust in technological code. So where before we trusted institutions such as the bank or a central bank or our government, all of a sudden this trust shifts towards code, it shifts towards algorithms, and this also comes with its own challenges. So we see there are both challenges emerging with it, but also opportunities. And we'll try to understand what theoretical lens could help us to understand these tensions. And we looked at different options to do that. We looked at a dialectical perspective, which is also looking at contradictions, but then the dialectical perspective assumes that such tensions are transformed through conflict, and that we then arrive at a new situation, at a new arrangement. And that is not really the case with the tensions that we started to see with blockchain technologies. We also looked at dilemmas. But dilemmas, they are representing a situation that requires a decision between two or more alternatives. So it involves weighing pros and cons, looking at advantages and disadvantages. And that again is not really the case with these tensions that emerge with DLTs. So we found that the paradox perspective is indeed the most suitable theoretic underpinning for our research, because the tensions that we see, they are persistent over time. And also our research is very much focused on this coexistence of these tensions and also how these contradictions are managed. So what are paradoxes then? Paradoxes are phenomena that are contradictory. They appear rational in isolation, but illogical in combination. So they're conflicting demands and they exist simultaneously and persist over time. Some have also used the word tension as a synonym to describe a paradox. And one very well-established and well-researched example of a paradox is the personalization privacy paradox. Some of you may have come across this somewhere. And I included only one source here, but really it is very well researched indeed. And the personalization privacy paradox represents this tension of individuals that on the one hand do not want to share too much of their personal information with organizations, but on the other hand, they enjoy the benefits, the convenience that come with increased personalization. So for example, in a retail context, that's where this source is taken from, individuals may feel hesitant to share personal information with a retailer, and they would say, my privacy is very important to me. But when they go shopping, they might actually think, oh, this is a great individualized, personalized offer, and enjoy the benefits and the convenience that come with that. So that is a paradox between this increased personalization, while at the same time they're concerned about their privacy. We can also look at the question whether paradoxes are real and dare to be discovered, or whether they are indeed socially constructed. And we take this quantum approach to paradox theory and assume that they are both inherent and socially constructed. And that's why you see also Schrödinger's cat made it into our presentation on this slide. So they exist, but they are only made salient when they are enacted. And our research aims to really identify both types of tensions. So the latent tensions that are persisting and the salient tensions that are only become salient once enacted and once experienced and once we engage with them. So our research objective is really to identify the paradoxes in the context of distributed ledger technologies. And we aim to do that by answering two main research questions. And those are what paradoxes are salient in the context of DLTs, and how can each paradox be addressed, either in practice or in further studies and further research. We have chosen a two-study design to answer these research questions, starting off with a qualitative approach and conducting expert interviews, where we talk with experts in the field and include here both experienced researchers and practitioners working on DLTs. So again, reflecting this interdisciplinary approach to it, because we believe it's very important to avoid having any bias in the responses that might appear if we only focus on interviewing academics or only focus on particular industries. And these expert interviews will allow us to capture not only the interviewees' opinions, but also underpinning reasons for their opinions. With that, we try to identify the paradoxes that emerge with blockchain technologies and distributed ledger technologies. And that's where this study is currently at. So we're currently conducting interviews and analyzing emerging data, and I will share some preliminary results after that. This study will be followed up by a Delphi study. And we do this to ensure completeness, but also to refine the experts' views and to reach some kind of consensus. So what we do with the Delphi study is we present the metadata that we collect in the first study back to the expert panel in a questionnaire and send this questionnaire to this expert panel. Once we receive their responses, we then develop another questionnaire, taking in these responses and refining it further. And this process is basically repeated until there is group consensus, until we achieve a group consensus. And this will allow us to ensure that the paradoxes we identify are complete and also that our results will be reliable. And I would like to share some of the preliminary results that came through the interviews that we've conducted so far. So you see on the left side is the paradox we identified. We then tried to conceptualize what tensions underpin this paradox, and also included some interview quotes, which I won't read out, as otherwise we run out of time, but we highlighted a few of the most important passages here. And the first one relates to the very beginning of my talk, to the immutability of a data record, of data stored on a blockchain. And this immutability creates a tension because it is in contrast to the GDPR right to be forgotten. So each individual that shares personal identifiable information with an organization has the right to ask this organization to delete all such information that was collected. That becomes almost impossible if such data is stored on a blockchain, because there is no easy way to just delete data once it enters the blockchain. There's also a paradox emerging with trust in the trusted system. So we have to ensure that the data is indeed a reflection of truth before it is entered into the system and before it is stored on a blockchain. So referring back to the example I mentioned at the beginning of creating more sustainable supply chains, we need to ensure that data of such supply chain transactions that enter the blockchain are indeed a reflection of the truth. So to be a bit more concrete, we need to make sure that data that is stored about the production methods, about how sustainable fish is really caught in the ocean, or how sustainable really a mine is working that is producing gemstones or diamonds. We need to make sure that this link between real-world data and the blockchain data, that this is indeed a reflection of truth, and that relates to the trust in this trusted system. Also, there are issues emerging related to sustainability. So yes, we can create more sustainable supply chains using blockchain technologies, but currently there is a very unsustainable power consumption. And we see one expert put it as nothing can keep going from bottom left to top right forever. And I think that is really a reflection of what is happening right now here. Or another expert put it as it feels a bit like an arms race that we are currently in. So there are tensions around this sustainability and indeed unsustainability as well. We also find tensions related to decentralization. So yes, there is blockchain technologies. One of the main advantages is the decentralization. But then again, we have often very small groups of miners, of developers, who indeed have quite a lot of power over these codes and algorithms. So while we have a more decentralized system, at the same time, these tensions emerge with that, as this decentralization may indeed be not as decentralized as it appears at first sight. Also, there are tensions and paradoxical tensions around anonymity, because anonymity is sometimes indeed just a belief. As one expert put it here, yes, we have anonymized identifiers, but if we triangulate such identifiers, then all of a sudden it might become very easy to identify individuals based on these anonymous identifiers. So once data is triangulated, it might not be anonymity, but it might be only a pseudo-anonymity. And we need to think about that in the context of DLTs as well, where we have wallet IDs and other identifiers that can be used to identify individuals. And then finally, we also have to consider ethics, as blockchain technologies can help to, can be used for greater good to help society. But there is also a risk to leave some people behind who might not have access to this technology, who might not be as tech savvy, and we need to ensure that those, coming back again to the example of the sustainable supply chain, that those who actually work in the mines, who work in at the ocean and catch the fish, or whatever supply chain it is we're looking at, that those individuals can equally benefit from this technology, and we do not leave a whole generation behind. So this leads to almost the end of this talk, to the intended contributions of our research. So we hope to contribute to paradox theory, to extend paradox theory and define its boundaries, and also find a distinction from related constructs. So does technology realize paradoxes, create paradoxes, or are they there to be found and acontextual, just made salient? So that will be the first contribution to paradox theory. We then go on and hope to contribute to the emerging literature on DLTs and blockchain technologies, and develop a research agenda and potential research questions for further empirical studies. We also hope that we will come up with a methodological contribution, as I believe this combination of expert interviews and a Delphi study to refine the results will be very valuable, and hopefully also have methodological insights that may be valuable beyond this particular research context. And of course, we also aim to contribute to practice and deduce managerial implications that will be targeted in particular to organizations working with DLTs, as we shed light on these emerging tensions and how they may potentially be resolved. And this leads me to the end of the presentation. I realize my references are in quite small font, but they will appear in the conference proceedings. So if you would like to read up, you will find the references in detail there. And we really look forward to hearing your thoughts and feedback. And I would like to thank you for your attention. Thanks.